to our webinar entitled In-Depth, the Uniform Collateral Data Portal. We wanted to thank all of you once again for joining us today, and I must tell you all that you all are in for a real treat. We have a guest speaker. Her name today is Melanie McLean of the Melanie Group. She's a certified appraiser, licensed associate broker, and seasoned real estate educator with over 34 years experience in the industry. So she is going to provide you with a realistic view into what appraisers have been experiencing with the new UAD requirements that have taken effect as of September 1st of this year. We have a lot of content to cover, so very quickly, if you all have any questions during any point in the presentation, please feel free to send them via the chat section of your GoToWebinar. And also, we are recording the session, so if you know of anyone who was unable to attend today, it will be available 48 hours from now via our YouTube site. So we will definitely let you know and keep you posted on that. So I'll go ahead and let Melanie go ahead and get started with her presentation. Melanie?
Good afternoon, and thank you very much. Okay, let's just get going. Well, the slide is not advancing. There we go. My contact information is there on this screen. If you want to jot it down, by all means, feel free. If you do, any people out there are into social media, I tweet, I am on LinkedIn, I am on Facebook, and I do spend a lot of my time educating realtors and appraisers. So any questions you might have about either side of the industry, the sales side or the appraisal side, might be able to help you with. This slide, I think I'm not going to discuss it because I don't know what all is on it, but I think Crystal can cover it.
Sorry about that.
She'll cover
I
that
thought I had removed it, but I guess, yeah, sorry.
Okay. So anyhow, this screen kind of describes the sentiment among appraisers. And of course it says mad as hell, which is part of the phrase, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. One of the things that I always observe with appraisers is they are certainly the group within the real estate industry who are the graybeards, if not literally, at least figuratively. They're a very stable group in our industry. Real estate agents tend to come and go. Appraisers tend to come and stay. So they've been there for a long time. The statistics from the National Association of Realtors say the average appraiser in the United States is around 58, 59 years old. So they've been through a lot. They went through FIREA. And of course, FIREA was the Financial Institutions Reform Recovery Economic Act that essentially created certification. Prior to that, every state had their own laws regarding certification, or doing appraisals rather. There was not a certification. I'm from Pennsylvania. In my state, prior to FIREA, as soon as you got a broker's license, you were eligible to do an appraisal, and so that's what people did. So we had FIREA. That led to certification. It required people to get education. It required them to become aware of and begin to use PAP and adhere to it. Now, the Appraisal Qualifications Board within the past few years has raised the bar even more for entry into the field of appraising. As I think most of you are aware, the education hours are longer, the experience hours are longer, and so it's become a challenging business to get into. Appraisers got through that. Then we had HVCC and the AMCs, and I'll be honest with you, they're a cynical group, and I'm in that group. Cynical because most of them realize that Mr. Cuomo, who pushed HVCC, was in fact a part owner of an AMC and had in fact worked for Fannie Mae. So that contributed to the overall cynicism of why is this going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread to have this. Now we all know HVCC sunsetted. We also all know Fannie Mae basically replaced HVCC with their own rules, which are essentially the same. The AMC thing, and I understand I'm speaking to people who work for an AMC, and I'm just trying to be honest and not hurt anyone's feelings. It certainly has engendered resentment among appraisers and agents, especially because of the companies that are not great companies. And I'm sure your company is a great company, but they are all not great companies. So you have situations where appraisers are being asked to do the same appraisal on the same property for the same lender, but there's a middleman involved, and now it is expected to be done more quickly and for a lower fee, and that doesn't make people real happy. The flip side of that is the whole geographic competency issue, which I know everyone on this call is aware of, but I have to tell you, as a traveling instructor, I still hear today, every day, in my email, on Facebook, stories of the appraiser came from 4 counties over. He didn't belong to our MLS. He didn't have a lockbox key. I had to meet him at the property. And so there's a lot of issues with all of this. Now we have UAD. And essentially, what a lot of appraisers hear Fannie Mae saying is, gosh, we wouldn't have had any bad loans at all if appraisers hadn't been just allowed to put average down, which is kind of nonsense, and we all know that part of it is nonsense. That, you know, appraisers putting average down on a report as a description was not the cause of the mortgage meltdown. Of course, we could have had some contributory factors from that. So I would have to tell you, appraisers today feel beleaguered, meaning attacked from all sides. They've got lenders. Lenders have gotten religion about lending. It's like all of a sudden everyone realized, wow, we really should make sure people have income, a down payment, a good credit rating, which of course are things that lenders required when I got in the business in the late 1970s. But now you have lenders going overboard, and they're putting even more restrictions on their lending policy. We have AMCs. Some of them are great, some of them are not so great. We have AVMs, automated valuation models. Now, automated valuation models manage to irritate just about everyone in the real estate industry, and the favorite whipping boy is Zillow. When I teach this to realtors and appraisers, I tell them just take a step backward and first of all realize AVMs have been with us for a really long time. Every county courthouse uses some sort of an AVM to determine assessed value for tax purposes. But the issue I always say to any group I'm talking to about AVMs, the issue with an AVM is real simple. When you're valuing property, all comps are sales. It has to have sold for us to call it a comp. You can't pick a house that looks like it should have sold and say, I'm going to call that a comp and use it in my report. But all sales are not comps. A great example I can give you of that is last summer, I had a young man call me. His mother passed away. His dad was in a nursing home. He lived in Montana. As I said, I'm in Pennsylvania. He said, I'm going to auction the house. I need you to come give me an appraisal so I know what to take at auction. So I did that. The house did not sell at auction. The day after the auction, the adult son of the next door neighbor, and the next door neighbors had been very kind to his parents when they lived there, came over and said, I will buy the house from you for X amount of dollars. That fee was, or that price that he offered was substantially less than my appraisal, but my client took it because he lived in Montana and it was fall and he wanted to get back and he wanted to just be done with his house. Now the problem is every AVM out there, from Zillow to What's My House Worth to housevalues.com, realtor.com, RPR, whoever you want to think of, is going to pick that up. They're going to call it a sale. They're not going to realize or investigate whether it's arm's length or not. It will bring down the value in that neighborhood. As an appraiser, I would never use that as a comp because I know the story. And of course, as an appraiser, I'm supposed to always determine before I use something whether or not it's an arm's length transaction. This leads us into BPOs, broker price opinions. I'm actually rewriting a course for Honduras on this, and I participated in the writing of NAR's course on BPOs. And this is another controversial area among appraisers and agents. This is something that's also very much a patchwork across the United States, with some states allowing agents to do BPOs. Other states do not allow agents to do BPOs. Here's the scary thing. In every state in the union, the day we give someone a real estate license, they're allowed to go price property, whether they know what they're doing or not. That's the scary part, and a lot of them don't know what they're doing. So BPOs, you've got lenders using them. They're using them to remove PMI. They're using them to make determinations of short sales, all kinds of stuff. And again, appraisers feel like, hey, you're cutting into my business. I have the expertise. Instead, you're hiring this person who got a license 2 months ago and doesn't know what the heck they're doing. And then you have the UAD, the Uniform Appraisal Data Set. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I have to say the appraisers are rising to the occasion. UAD kept me very busy this summer. Normally summer's a little slow time for a real estate educator because people are on vacation or they're busy. I was busy doing UAD. I did live classes. I did a webinar for NAR. I'm doing this one for you. And a lot of appraisers out there are finding out as much as they can. They're taking Fannie Mae's online webinar. They're taking webinars provided by their appraisal software companies. They are preparing, but there is still a lot of cynicism out there, and I wouldn't lie to you and say there isn't. It is required for use by this month. It went into effect September 1st. Actually had a couple appraisers say, I'm going to take September off till everyone figures out how to do this. I also had a very good friend who's been appraising in the Center County area of Pennsylvania, which is where Penn State is, for probably 30 years. She's excellent. And she said, I'm done. I'm just not even going to do something else. I'm just done. So she has retired. So what does the UAD do? What is this all about? Well, from the appraiser side of the desk, what it does is it standardizes certain data points. And the intent from Fannie Mae, and I totally understand their intent, and I actually don't have a huge problem with their intent. Their intent is let's make sure that we're all speaking the same language, because when I say average, if you say average, do we mean the same thing? If I say average plus, do I really mean good? If I say average minus, do I really mean fair? And let's be frank, folks, the reason you got permutations of the word average was because when appraisers put down the word fair, the underwriter called and had a hissy fit and said, we need that fair to be out of there. It's got to be average or we can't make the loan. We won't even talk today about the pressure that's been on appraisers for years because I don't want to ruin your day any more than I already am. The GSEs, the government-sponsored entities, will be using the Uniform Collateral Data Portal, UCDP, and it will be a single portal for electronic submission of the appraisal data. Now, my understanding of the process is that appraisers will continue to send reports to their clients in the manner in which they are already doing that. And we know that some of our clients have portals. VA, for example, has a portal and other lenders do. Most appraisers are using software that does that they can run a review before they upload the report or send it and hopefully get the glitches out. But my further understanding is that when appraisal reports are taken by the lender and put through the UCDP, if there is anything missing or incorrect, the appraisal will be kicked back out, and the lender will be told, go tell the appraiser this is wrong, you have to fix it. When you talk to Fannie Mae or when you go on their website, they say, we want to capture consistent data, we want to drive improved loan quality, and we want to manage risk effectively. To which I say, well, gosh, if you wanted to do all that, why were you making subprime loans in the early 2000s? But again, that's another topic. But understand what I just said about subprime loans. Appraisers are up on this. Appraisers know what happened. They know about Community Reinvestment Act. They know how various people who worked for Fannie Mae, whether it was Johnson or then Raines succeeded Johnson, manipulated the books because the pay at Fannie Mae was based upon performance and how many loans they sold. Appraisers know that. They're not stupid. They do a lot of reading about this. And therefore, they know that so much of what everyone's trying to fix now really didn't start with the appraisers. It started with the drive to make more loans, serve underserved markets, which is another way of saying let's make some subprime loans. So there's a lot of unhappiness there over trying to blame it all again on the appraisers. Now, let's talk about this. The Uniform Loan Delivery Data Set. This is the standardization of loan delivery data that will help leverage the use of MISMO, and I'm going to probably mess up trying to remember that anagram. I had it on my original slide. I think it's mortgage something to do with mortgages, and I apologize, Crystal, that was on the original slide, but don't worry, folks. It's just another great anagram. This whole bill's full of anagrams. The uniform.
It's okay. I can go ahead and pull that up for you, Melanie, and I'll come back with that answer for you.
The Uniform Collateral Data Portal. This is going to be where lenders submit reports electronically. They have a deadline. After when they hit that deadline, that will be the only way they're allowed to submit reports. The thing that's affecting appraisers is the standardization of the data, including data formats, abbreviations, ratings and definitions, and complete instructions for how an appraiser is to complete an appraisal report. Now, I have to take my hat off to the appraisal software companies. They really stepped up to the plate, in my opinion, and the software I've looked at, and I've looked at my own, and I've looked at Alamo because I'm an instructor. They sent me a demo so I could play with it. What they've all done is in the fields on the URAR, which have UAD-specific responses, they have all pretty much gone to a drop-down menu. They've also somehow flagged that field, usually with a small colored box in the upper left-hand corner. That's a visual alert to the appraiser as he or she is sitting looking at their screen. Okay, this is a UAD-specific field, and then they can all usually do something. In my software, it's right-click and get the rule or whatever it is they're supposed to do there. So they kind of, they certainly have a lot of information on the screen as they work through it. But let's be honest, as with anything else, anytime you start doing things differently than you did them before, there's a learning curve. Learning curve takes time. And so you've got a lot of appraisers out there who have been investing their time to learn to do this. And of course, no one's paying them for that. They just have to spend the time to do it. Here are the things.
Melanie?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. MISMO actually stands for Mortgage Industry Standards Maintenance Organization.
There you go. It should be my motion, something you should drink. That's what it stands for. And if you go to Fannie Mae's website, and I would assume everyone online on this phone call goes to efanniemae.com. If you haven't gone there, you want to go there. You want to sign up for their updates because that's how you find out what they're up to. And all the anagrams are there. Thanks, Crystal. Okay, here are the things that are being standardized. Data formats. UAD is extremely specific, and it's not kind of sort of do it like this. It's absolutely positively enter it this way and no other way. So the formats of data, the input requirements, the descriptions, the ratings, the instructions, all of these have been standardized. Do I think they have all the bugs out? No way, but time will tell. Again, when you ask Fannie, why are we doing this? Fannie says, we want efficiency and consistency in reviews. Now, let's talk about the review function, and I'm going to jump ahead, but I think your brains can handle it. One of the things that is required under UAD is that all addresses, whether we're talking the subject property or the comparables, must be entered the same way the U.S. Postal Service has the address formatted for that property. Let me give you an example. My home address is on a road, R-O-A-D. However, the post office abbreviates River Road, where I live, as R-D. If I were, as an appraiser, to spell out road, R-O-A-D, or put R-D period, that would not be the United States Postal Service format, and that would be wrong, because what Fannie Mae can do with the addresses is once they're in the correct format, they can search by address. So if I did an appraisal on River Road and another appraiser did an appraisal of the same property on River Road, Fannie Mae has the ability to pull up every appraisal that's ever been done on that property. At the very end of the form, when the appraiser signs his or her name, they must sign their name exactly as it appears in the Federal Registry of Appraisers. And again, that allows Fannie and Freddie to search by your name. So if all of a sudden you have an appraiser who is miraculously churning out 3,000 appraisals a month, people can look at that and say, gee, that doesn't look quite right. For quality control, it's going to be great, because if you've got people who are not crossing their T's and dotting their I's, you will have a very easy way to pull up all of their stuff, and I totally understand that. Now, improved data integrity related to home values. The paranoia that the appraisal community has had for years, which has not gone away and which will not go away, is that their data is being stolen and used against them and sold to AVMs and put into massive computer banks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has developed the Realtors Property Resource, which is a mega database of information, and their stated goal was to have the best data in the United States on all properties. A lot of this is more sensitive in states which have different public record laws. For example, I have taught in Wyoming, which is a non-public record state, so there's never a price recorded with a deed. Obviously, if you get your hands on a good appraisal done by an appraiser in Wyoming who's been able to verify sales price and seller concessions and all that stuff, that's gold, because you're not going to find that anywhere else. It certainly is not going to be in the public records. And it may not be in the MLS, depending upon where the appraiser found the comps. The other thing they want to do is strengthen loan underwriting process by a more consistent view, and they are really looking for consistency. They want people to be on the same page. And they're, of course, going to manage and mitigate valuation risk by doing all of this, because mitigating risk is a real big buzzword right now and gets everyone's attention. So as an appraiser, what are you going to do? You're going to use a required format. You're going to select the input from the choices they give you. You're going to use acceptable abbreviations, and there will be no going off the reservation and coming up with your own abbreviation. You will use the ones Fannie gave you. You will select appropriate ratings, and you will follow the instructions. Now, the ratings, of course, Fannie Mae says with a straight face they dreamed up all on their own. I haven't met an appraiser yet who's taken a course from me on this that has not looked at Q1 through Q6 and said, hello, this is Marshall Swift going from excellent down to poor. And yeah, it's pretty much Marshall Swift going from excellent down to poor if you look at the Q1 through Q6 ratings. And Fannie Mae can swear on a stack of Bibles all day long that they came up with them independently. And I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you if you buy that, because I don't buy that one bit. Doesn't matter where they got them. They could just be more honest about it. So some of the fields that are standardized. The address, which we've already talked about. Financial assistance, and this has become a real big issue because, as you know, we've got concessions going backwards, forwards, and sideways in real estate to put sales together, whether it's a seller's assist or a builder concession or whatever is going on. View, in fairness to Fannie, I'm trying to be as even-handed as I can. Yes, appraisers were forever putting down average, and some appraisers were making sure they only got a picture of the good view. For years, I've always taken view shots in both directions. I've always included both directions in my report because I never wanted to not have anything I saw not be seen by my client. But view has been standardized. Basement. Basement was all over the place with respect to what was finished, which rooms were down there, how did you count the rooms that were down there, how was the basement accessed, was it walk out, walk up, an interior stairway. So all of that is covered. Data sources. As you know, UCDP requires an appraiser to verify data from a disinterested party. So we want to know where are the sources for verifying the data. Sale type, and what Fannie Mae tells you with the sale type is that the appraiser is to go through the list and select the first one which applies. There may be cases where more than one applies. For example, bankruptcy and court-ordered could be considered to be both applying to the same property, but court-ordered comes first in the list, so that would be the one somebody would use. Comparable date of sale. They want everyone putting everything in the month, day, year format. Location. Appraisers have to rate the location. They're doing the same thing with location they did with view. It's either N for neutral, B for beneficial, or A for adverse. and then they have to go on to describe the location. Quality. Now, this is interesting because this is a concept I often find new people to the appraisal business kind of have a light bulb go on when you explain quality to them, because they tend to correlate quality and condition. The best example I can give is you can have a magnificent mansion that's in deplorable condition. It would be high quality because that's the quality that it was built. The condition could be very poor. The AMC name, this does not go on the front of the report. It goes on the signature page, and that was another directive in the UAD from Fannie. Now, all of the dates are month, day, year format only. The exception is when you get on page 2, if all you have is the month and the year, you can do month, year. Price and price per square foot, currency and measurements are in whole numbers or rounded to 2 decimals only. In general, things are numeric, 0 to 1 decimal. Percent is numeric. Appraisers are not to use a decimal. Age is up to 3 digits. Now, when either the year built or the age is estimated, the appraiser is to use the tilde sign. The tilde is that wavy little line that is in the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard to the left of the 1 and exclamation point key. That little wavy line is a tilde sign. So if you think as an appraiser that it was built around 1950, but you're not sure if it was 49 or 51 or 50, you're to use the tilde sign. Square footage, numeric to 5 digits, no decimals. Days on market up to 4 digits. I think their guess is that nothing's going to be on the market longer than 9,999 days. I certainly hope not. Now, the location and view factors. Again, the appraiser has to pick one. So it's either N for neutral, B for beneficial, or A for adverse. I have said to my students, if you are in a residential subdivision and the house is looking at other residential houses, you're probably going to put N semicolon RES, which is the way Fannie wants you to express it if it's neutral and you're looking at a residential view. Now, if it's the condo on the 10th hole of the golf course, most appraisers would describe that as beneficial, and there's actually an abbreviation for golf course. If you're looking at the back of the state prison, including the chain link fence with the barbed wire at the top, that's probably going to be adverse. And actually institutional is not one of their choices, so it would be other, and then you would have to explain. I don't know what kind of pictures you folks get in the reports you get, but I will tell you that I am always urging my students to take even more pictures than Fannie tells them to, because I really believe a picture is worth 1,000 words. So here, give the person a picture. Here's what I'm looking at. Here are the location factor abbreviations, and Crystal's done a very nice job cleaning this up and making it look very pretty compared to mine. But again, Fannie is being very precise with appraisers by saying you must use the abbreviation exactly the way we have it. Now, because most of the software companies went to a drop-down menu, the appraisers are not going to need to remember how these are abbreviated. They're just going to have to be able to figure out what it is they've decided the view is, and then they'll select it from the drop-down menu. You see we have residential, industrial, commercial, busy road, waterfront, golf course, adjacent to park, adjacent to power lines, landfill, and public transportation. And those are all location factor abbreviations. Excuse me, I needed a sip of water. Now, the view factors, again, water, pastoral, which we had a lot of fun in class. What's pastoral? I live out in the country. I'm looking at a cornfield out my window right now because I work from my den at home, so that's kind of pastoral to me. Woods view, park, golf course, city view skyline. Now, they also have a city street view, And actually there's an error there. That should be CTY, not STY. But what most of us who have looked at this a lot have come to decide in our own minds is city view skyline would imply that you're high enough up in a building, or you have enough of an unobstructed view of the skyline. So a penthouse in Pittsburgh with a view of the three rivers would probably be city skyline. But if you're on the second or third floor of a building in Baltimore and all you can see is other buildings nearby, that's probably city street. Mountain view, residential view, city street, industrial view, power line, limited site. And limited site could be a building or buildings obstructing your view. It could also be natural things, like because I'm in a rural area, I've seen people who've actually built houses in next to gravel pits or next to shale pits where you really can't see anything because of the way the house is situated. Now, how do these appraisal abbreviations get used? The appraiser must list at least one. They may list up to two. They are not to use other unless it's something that is truly none of the above. And if you're using other as an appraiser because it's none of the above, they need to describe to you what makes it none of the above. So the example I gave a few minutes ago, just suppose the house was overlooking Rockview Prison in Center County. You know, it's a view of the prison wall and fence, so it doesn't fit into any of those other categories. They do not want none, average, typical. I've told all of my students, get rid of those words from your vocabulary when you come to location and view. Just get rid of them. They're done. No one wants to see none, average, or typical. Now, rating the property condition. This is huge because this has required, it's generated an awful lot of discussion. We have agreed, many appraisers, that we still think there will be situations where one appraiser will call it a C4 and another will call it a C3 or a C5 because it's just going to depend. This is, despite everyone's best efforts, it's still a subjective profession. But C1, obviously top of the list, recently constructed, not previously been occupied, everything's new, no physical depreciation. That's a pretty easy one to nail. Even if the house has been lived in for a month, it would not be a C1 because it says has not been previously been occupied. C2, this is going to be an almost new home or a house that is like almost new. Now, again, I related this in my classes to a discussion of effective age, because one of the things I teach beginning appraisers when they're learning the business is how you really need to understand actual age and effective age, because effective age is going to go into all of your thinking with respect to this property. C3, we're probably going to see a lot of C3s. I say we, you guys are going to see a lot of C3s. I will be real frank with you and tell you the appraisal students I have encountered all view C3 and C4 as pretty safe categories. They're pretty sure if they put down C3 and C4, they're not going to get a lot of phone calls from underwriters. Believe me, I have cautioned them, please only put down C3 and C4 if that's actually what is there. But we all know what happens in this business, unfortunately. C3, well-maintained, limited physical depreciation due to normal wear and tear. Some components, but not all, may be updated or recently rehabilitated. Structure has been well-maintained. C4, it's a notch down, requires minimal repairs. All major building components have been adequately maintained and are functionally adequate. Now, C5, C6. I said there was cynicism. Here's the cynicism. Every class I taught, everyone said, yeah, you put down C5 or C6 and they're not going to get the loan and your phone's going to ring. And I said, you know what? If you get there and it's C5 or C6, put down what it is. Your Fox News, you report, they decide. You are not in charge of making the decision as to whether or not a loan should be made. you are in charge of reporting what you see to your client, who is the lender or the AMC, and then they're going to decide. The other thing to me was that quite obviously you could have a C5 or C6 rating if you were doing, say, a Fannie Mae 203K appraisal where someone planned to rehab the building anyway. C5, obvious deferred maintenance, significant repairs, but it says remains usable and functional. And C6, this is the kiss of death for most lenders. We all understand that because deficiencies or defects severe enough to affect safety, soundness, or structural integrity of the improvements. Well, we know VA is safe, sound, and sanitary, and FHA is safe, sound, and secure. We know Fannie Mae is also interested in safety and the security of the dwelling. So these would be things that would have to be fixed for most lenders. Now, once the appraiser has done the condition, they then have to look at 3 ratings with respect to the kitchen and the bathrooms. And the 3 ratings are not updated, updated, or remodeled. Now, Lord knows we have a lot of confusion over the word remodeled in the real estate industry anyway, because we have agents who really think that if somebody puts down new countertop and a new kitchen floor and different knobs on the cabinets, that they've remodeled their kitchen. And no, they haven't remodeled their kitchen. They've updated their kitchen. One of the best side effects to me of the plethora of pictures that now appear in the MLS is that as an appraiser, I can look at those pictures and pretty much disregard agent comments if I think the agent is a numbskull. No offense meant to anyone. So the 3 ratings, not updated. And not updated is not necessarily bad. If the house is 3 years old, why would it have been updated? It probably doesn't need to be updated. Updated, just what it sounds like. It's not a complete remodeling job, but we've done an update. Remodeled. Now, when you read the stuff from Fannie about remodeled, they're talking about creating more space, rearranging the space. Basically, in a kitchen remodel, I would think you would be talking about going down to the studs, new cabinetry, new appliances, new sink, new countertop, new floor covering. And not only must they describe them, they have to talk about when they were done. 0 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 10 to 15, or over 15 years ago. The other things that have to be standardized are the description of the improvements, of construction, the standardization of the sales type, the standardization of finance types and concessions, and the standardization of date and of sale. Most appraisers are going to comply with this. Some have retired. Most expect more tweaks and changes. We don't have a slide for basement, but let me talk to you about basement because I think you're going to run into basement and you might be puzzled when you first see it if you've not read through the stuff from Fannie Mae. On the front of the URAR form, Fannie Mae has kept the percentage of the basement finished. But on the back of the URAR form where you've got the subject and the comparables, the data entry for the basement is first of all the appraiser does the square footage of the basement. Then they follow it with the square footage that is finished. Then then they follow that with either WU for walk up, meaning you have to go up a flight of stairs. Think of a Bilko door, an outside entrance with a Bilko door where you go upstairs to the ground. Walk out, think of a basement where the house is probably built on a slight grade, and so I'm walking out at ground level at the back of the house. Maybe I go out a sliding door. Or interior stairway. You could have some basements that have more than one access. They could have, but they want you to put down just one. So if I had one that had walk out as well as interior, I would put walk out. Now, if you can all visualize that second page of the URAR, the second line for basement, the appraiser will have to give a room count. Now, the rooms Fannie Mae has decided we have in a basement are RR for rec room, BR for bedroom, BA for bathroom, and other. So if you had a house that had a family room, bedroom, bathroom, and laundry room, it would be 1RR, 1BA, 1BR, 1 other, because we have that laundry room and that's not in their list. So they want to know how much is finished. Again, one of the problems that appraisers are nattering about, and you know what, they're allowed to natter because this is a problem. Most MLS systems do not report the square footage of the basement that is finished. Instead, you'll see all kinds of stuff from agents. And of course, the other battle we have with agents is they count the basement in the above grade finished space anyway. So appraisers are asking themselves aloud, how will I know how many square feet are finished in that basement? The answer is you may not know how many square feet are finished. You're going to have to take an educated guess. I have to tell you that when I look at UAD, and I understand that it applies to the 2055 form as well, I have to ask myself, how in the name of whatever are you supposed to be able to do UAD on 2055 where you have not been inside the home? I'm not a fan of an exterior inspection anyway. I've done them. I've particularly done them when there's been a hostile homeowner in possession and they're at the door with a gun and they don't want me to come in, so that's good enough for me. Then I don't go in, but I think it's going to present quite a challenge. Now, one of the other questions that has been raised is, well, okay, what about adjustments? And what if the subject has been deemed to be a C3, and one of the comparables is also a C3? Does that preclude the appraiser making an adjustment? And the answer that came from Fannie Mae, and this was talked about for over an hour at an instructor seminar, was no, because within that sphere, or within that grouping of C3, there's variation. So you could have one house, the subject, that's at the very high end of C3, and one of the comps could be at the low end of C3, almost to C4, and yes, you could make adjustments. Now, the other thing Fannie has said is that when you're on the grid on page 2, if there is a difference that you would normally make an adjustment for and you're not making one, they want the appraiser to enter 0, which I guess is the signal that, yes, I thought about this, and no, I'm not going to make an adjustment. I will tell you frankly, here's a piece of advice I've been, guys don't know how many years I've been wanting to give advice to AMC, so this is such a great opportunity, Crystal. Every appraiser I know wishes that before someone picks up the phone or emails a question, they would read the report. Every appraiser I know has stories about writing a long addendum explaining X, Y, and Z, only to get a phone call that says, but you didn't do X, Y, and Z, and they say, did you read my comments? Well, no, I didn't read that. Please read the comments. Let me give you an example. Let's just say we're appraising a property that's on a small amount of acreage and the comparables are on a small amount of acreage. And I have done this as an appraiser. I have not adjusted the acreage equally because the topography of the sites is not equal. So, for example, comp number 2 has 10 acres. Yeah, 1.5 acres flat, and the other 8.5 acres are vertical. That's not worth as much as 10 acres that are flat. So you're not going to make the same kind of adjustment. I always put that in my comments. That's the kind of thing that always makes the phone ring. You didn't adjust all the land sites equally. No, I didn't. Did you read the comments? Speaking of sites, the other thing Fannie has said, and this is different from what you are probably used to, they have said if the site size is under 1 acre, the appraiser is to report it in square footage, followed by SF. They do not want dimensions. They do not want 0.51 of an acre. They want square footage. If it is over an acre, even if it's only 43,561 feet, they want it reported in acreage with a decimal point. They don't care that you're mixing it. Now, I know at one time we were all told by Fannie Mae, it's all in acreage, or it's all in square footage, or it's all in dimensions. They have changed their mind on that. So if you've got a subject property that is 39,600 square feet, and one of your comps is 1.01 acres, the directive from Fannie Mae says that the subject property is going to be expressed in square footage. The comparable will be expressed in acreage, and obviously you would make, as an appraiser, whatever adjustment you felt was appropriate for those differences. One of the other things that you're probably noticing in reports is how we count bathrooms. Now, for years and years in the industry, the time-honored thing was bathrooms are going to be 2.5, meaning I got 2 full and 1/2 baths. That's what I have in my house, actually. No, that's going to be 2.1. So a full bath gets counted. They count 3/4 baths as a full bath. So that would be a shower stall, tub, and sink. Or excuse me, shower stall, commode, and sink. Quarter baths, Fannie Mae does not want counted at all. Quarter bath would be just a toilet. I know I run into those a lot in older homes where they've just stuck a toilet down in the basement because it would be convenient to have another toilet in the building. That is not to be counted at all. So if I have a house that has shower over tub, vanity, and commode, that's 1 bathroom. Shower stall, commode, vanity, that's the 2nd full bathroom. And then I've got 2 half baths. That's going to be expressed as 2.2. 2 full, 2 half. And of course, the question again becomes, where are those bathrooms? Because we are going to include below grade bathrooms in the basement room count on the back of the URAR. Those bathrooms should not be counted twice. They should only be counted 1 time. So they need to be counted in the above grade area, then they need to be counted in the below grade area the way that I just discussed. That's another change. I think that probably what a lot of appraisers are going to grapple with is quality. Right now, the average appraiser asking an agent, what would you say the quality of that property was? They're going to get, oh, it was good, because agents do not speak appraisers' language. Now, a lot of times an appraiser is going to be able to tell from exterior inspection, from knowing who the builder was, from knowing the area, the quality, but they're not always going to be able to do that. So this is going to be challenging. Crystal, at this point, I'm certainly open to questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Melanie. That was very, very informative. I'm sure all of our attendees learned a lot. They have been filing in on some questions, so if you haven't already sent in some, please feel free to do so now to ensure that we will receive and hopefully answer your question. So, Melanie, I'll go ahead and get started with the first question. It's from Barbara. She states that they do not make a distinction any longer of brick veneer exterior versus vinyl siding or aluminum siding. And it seems like this is an important item in Kentucky. She wants to know how they do address that, I guess, in regards to the new UAD and the quality of the construction and the ratings and things of that nature.
That's a great question, Barbara, and it's interesting because certainly within my career, especially before they brought out products that were basically maintenance-free, people did pay a premium for brick over frame because it was maintenance-free. It certainly costs more to do brick veneer. Of course, the other problem we have is a lot of times we're not doing a cost approach, so you might be able to bump it up for quality. As an appraiser, if I'm doing a brick house, I'm certainly going to try to find bricks as comparables. However, there's also the thing that sometimes in a market the buyers no longer recognize that difference, so I can't, as an appraiser, make an adjustment because I can't prove that they're paying more to get brick. So I don't know if I'm really answering her question, but that's kind of, you know, kind of the way I see it. And that's something that could get a room full of appraisers going for about 2 or 3 hours.
I'm sure. Great. And our next question is from Luke. He would like to know if you know when lenders will be required to upload the appraisals to the Uniform Collateral Data Portal.
I believe it is March of 2012 for any appraisal applications that were taken on or after December 1st of 2011. And of course, as a consumer, if you took my loan application December 1st of 2011 and it's March 1st and you still haven't sent my application in, I'm probably going to be a little bit unhappy. but I believe that is on Fannie Mae's website. And again, all they have to do is Google fanniemae.com. Crystal, I don't know if you get the automatic updates from Fannie Mae. I find them to be invaluable.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very valuable. They have a place where you can go ahead and sign up for that as well. Great. And our next question is from Stephen. Melanie, this is a pretty lengthy question, so if you need me to repeat it, please feel free to let me know. He says, in regards to condition ratings, if there's a situation in which an appraisal is being done for a 203K type loan, would the appraiser use an after completed rating of, say, C3 instead of a C5 or C6 that you mentioned? He also wants to know, how does the as-is versus as-completed subject to final inspection work in regards to the condition ratings?
Great question. When I have done 203Ks, they have required me to do 2 appraisals, an as-is and an as-complete. Now, FHA has a rule floating around out there. If a borrower is buying a home that Fannie Mae took back through foreclosure and they had a liquidation appraisal done, and it's not more than, I'm thinking their time frame is 9 months, but I could be wrong, 9 months old, then the second appraiser does not have to do an as-is. They only have to do an as-complete, because the borrower is allowed to use the liquidation appraisal done for foreclosure as their as-is, and then they do another one as complete. So I guess I'm telling him how to build a clock, and he only wanted to know what time it was. For my as complete, I would definitely use the condition rating that I think the property will be in when the work is done, and it would be subject to. And, you know, there's usually language that you insert there saying subject to plans and specs being completed in the workmanlike manner. When I do a 203K, I get all of the stuff from the borrower, and I don't know if you guys are aware, but Lowe's, the building store, does tremendous stuff with the 203K program, because their employees will actually help the borrowers estimate what they need to do and what it's going to cost. It's pretty cool. But anyhow, let's just say the buyer's got their laundry list. Here's my new HVAC system. Here's the estimate from the heating guy. Here's the estimate for the drywall and the carpeting. Here's the estimate for the new windows, blah, blah, blah. I scan that all into my report, and I add language that, you know, I'm basing this on this being done as described here. And I always ask for really detailed stuff. I don't want to just know you're putting a new roof. I want to know the weight of the shingles. I want to know if the old shingles are coming off. I want to know that you're going to replace the plywood underneath if it needs to be replaced. You know, I mean, I really want to know what you're doing. So I hope that helps. And of course, anytime it's as complete, we should definitely have an inspection to make sure everyone did what they said they were going to do.
Great advice. Thank you so much. And the next question is from Natalie. She states that where the prior sales history is listed, if there are no prior sales, should the $0 be entered in the price of the prior sale, or should it be left blank?
You know, that's another great controversy, because I have a friend who does VA appraisals, and the VA landed on him with 4 feet and said, put in the last recorded sale, even if it's for $1. So he now does that for VA. So even if it was 1956, he puts down 1956 in the whole 9 yards. I've been using NA in the past. I don't know how that'll go through the portal, if they will fuss about that. But I'm glad Natalie asked this, because the other thing is that they're very clear that they want all the sales within 3 years, and they want all of the offering information within 1 year. And we did not cover this before, but on page 1 of the URAR at the top, where they ask, has the property been offered for sale within the past 12 months? They want to know all the times it's been offered, and they consider days on market to be cumulative. So if I tried to sell my house on my own for 60 days, and then I listed it with a broker for 90 days, and then that listing expired and I listed it with another broker, the appraiser is actually supposed to add all of those days together. So Natalie, I hope that helps a little.
Great. And here's another question from Fred. He states, is there no way to rate site view regarding, I think it's a typo here, I'm not sure if he was trying to convey the word duality or usability of view, such as river versus bay or lake? probably duality.
That's a great question, because I would say that a lake view is often superior, or a bay view, to some of those other water views. I guess what I would do is I would put water and then I'd put a comment. But when he said duality, the other question that came up is, let's just suppose the front of the house is actually not a really fantastic view at all. It's pretty darn plain. But the back of the house, which has the biggest windows, is a gorgeous view of a valley and mountains and everything else. I would tend to report there's two views. If you look out the front, you're seeing the neighborhood and it's nothing special. However, if you look out the back, they have an unobstructed view of the valley and it's very pretty. And I would take pictures of both of those and then hope and pray that whoever's reviewing my report would actually read my comments.
Great. And Carla says, how does she adjust for basement finish and room count? She says it kind of seems like she would be double adjusting.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, let's do the easy part, basement finish. I've been in basements that have been finished and it's been a negative because they're so bad or so dated or so nasty that actually buyers look at it and say, oh gosh, I'm going to have to spend $2,000 getting rid of this stuff. Now I'm talking about the bad basement with the moldy, warped masonite paneling and the indoor-outdoor rug, and the whole thing smells of cat urine. I've been in that basement several times.
Oh.
Now, you could have a basement that's absolutely gorgeous. It could have a great carpeted floor, high-quality carpet. It could have drywall walls, recessed lighting, the whole 9 yards. So first of all, before you make any adjustments, you have to kind of have an idea of how does the finished area below grade in the comparable compare to the finished area below grade in the subject. Then for the room count, you're only going to make one adjustment there for the finished area below grade. And again, it's going to be based on the appraiser's take on how this affects value. What would the market do for it? I was in a house once where, for reasons best known to the owners, it had been a 3-bedroom bi-level. They took all 3 bedrooms upstairs and made one huge bedroom. And then they made 2 other bedrooms and a full bath in the lower level of a bi-level. Well, those bedrooms became pretty darn important because without those bedrooms, you had a 1-bedroom house, which is not really marketable in a lot of places. So in that instance, I might give, quote, more credit for that finished area, but it's, you know, it's going to be case by case. That's what appraisers do. And of course, the other thing that always frustrates the people who get appraisal reports is that if I'm going to make an adjustment, I better have something in my work file that explains why I did it and why I think I can justify that.
Great. And just for the record, Fred sent in another chat message stating that the word was quality, not duality or usability. So it's quality. Thank you, Fred, for clearing that up.
I get what you mean, because some views are better than other views. Of course, then in the selling end of the market, you know, you have people who say to agents, I have $1 million view. And the answer to that is yes, but no one will pay you $1 million for that view.
Exactly. Great. And Fred follows up with another good question as well. He said, if the format for the GLA rooms is 5, 3, and 2, why can't the basement rooms be set for the same way instead of naming the rooms? The older rooms used to have a grid for rooms on page 1 of the URAR.
Tell Fred his guess is as good as mine if I understood the mind of Fannie Mae. I would be so far out of the game. I have no idea. I really don't. I mean, they just do what they do.
Wow. Okay. Good answer. Jane follows up with another question. I think we'll take this one as our last one because we're running out of time here. But she states, on the requirement for using USPS for property address standardizing, what happens when, 1, you have new construction and the post office hasn't assigned an address yet, or 2, when you have a mailing address in one city and a physical address in an adjacent city?
Great question, and this is going to have us all pulling our hair out of. The first one, new construction, the directions from Fannie Mae say if there is not yet an address, and she's exactly right, most post offices will not give an address until someone physically moves in and goes to the post office and says, hi, I'm living in that house over there, give me an address. So in that case, you're supposed to identify it with like the lot and block within the subdivision, something like that. Now, if you've got a mailing address that's one thing and a physical address that's another, I'm not sure, I wish I knew, what Fannie Mae wants you to do. I don't think I saw that in their FAQs, but I could be wrong, and they do have FAQs at the eFannie Mae website, and they are updating the FAQs frequently. But she's right. That's the kind of thing that will bounce a report right out of that portal in a heartbeat.
Exactly. Yes, great. All right. That is all the time that we have. And Melanie, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap everything up?
Thank you, Crystal, for inviting me, and I hope everyone had a good time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you don't mind bringing up the last page, just so we can go through everything.
There you go.
Thank you all once again for attending. Thank you so much, Melanie. And once again, if you have any questions for Melanie, you can email her directly at melanie@themelaниegroup.com, or you can send us your information to webinars@coesterappraisals.com, and either way, we'll go ahead and direct everything to Melanie. Once again, Melanie, thank you so much for the great presentation, all your information. We definitely appreciate it. And everyone that attended, this is being recorded, so it will be up within 48 hours for future reference.
Great.
Thank you all so much.
Have a good one.
And Melanie, thanks again. You
Bye.
too. Bye-bye.